Okay, when you hear the word virus, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Sickness, right? Pandemics, destruction. But what if I told you that's only like half the story? Today, we're going to flip the script and look at the other side, the creative, the essential, the absolutely world-shaping role of viruses.
So let's just jump right in with a huge, kind of mind-bending question. What if the deadliest things on Earth are also the very reason you exist? You, me, everything. Sounds like a total paradox, doesn't it? But believe it or not, it's a scientific reality we're only just starting to wrap our heads around.
And this right here, this really sets the stage. We're shifting our thinking from that common view, viruses as these agents of pure destruction, to something way more complex. The reality is, they're actually one of the most powerful engines for diversity and creation on the entire planet.
All right, so let's start at the beginning and really unpack this. Are they killers or are they creators? The fascinating, kind of crazy answer is they have to be both. You know what's wild is how simple a virus really is. I mean, it's not much more than a little bit of genetic code, DNA or RNA, tucked inside a protein shell. That's it. But here's the kicker. It needs a living host to make copies of itself. It's right there on the very edge of life, totally helpless on its own.
But that very weakness, that dependence, well, that's also its superpower. See, there's this process called horizontal gene transfer. Think of viruses as these little molecular couriers. They pick up genes from one organism and just drop them off in a totally different one, even across species that have nothing to do with each other. They're constantly, and I mean constantly, reshuffling the entire genetic deck of life on a global scale.
Okay, so that's the big picture. But let's bring this down from a huge planetary process to something, well, deeply personal. We're about to look inside our own cells, at our hidden viral DNA. And I'm not being poetic here. This isn't a metaphor. Your genome, the literal blueprint that makes you, is filled, absolutely littered with the fossilized remains of ancient viruses. Viruses that infected our ancestors millions and millions of years ago. And we're not talking about some tiny little trace amount. Get this, a staggering 8%. 8% of the human genome is made of these viral leftovers. Scientists call them endogenous retroviruses. That means nearly a tenth of what makes you is genetically viral in origin. Just let that sink in for a second.
And this stuff isn't just useless junk DNA either, not at all. A gene called syncytin is the perfect example. It's literally an ancient viral gene that our bodies hijacked and repurposed for something absolutely incredible, building the placenta. That's right. Without a viral infection, way back in our evolutionary past, placental mammals, and that includes us humans, might never have even existed. Wow.
So, okay. Viruses have literally shaped us from the inside out. But now, let's zoom out. Let's pull back from our own bodies and look at the entire globe, because out there, we see an even bigger role they play. They are, in a very real sense, the planet's engineers. And where do we see this most clearly? Let's take a dive into the largest ecosystem on Earth, the oceans. Down there, viruses aren't just passing through. Oh no, they are the chief regulators of the entire marine web of life.
The scale of what they do is it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. Every single day, viruses in the ocean kill so many microorganisms that they recycle 20% of all living matter in the sea. 20% every day. They do it by literally bursting cells open. It's called viral lysis, and that explosion releases all the nutrients that fuel the entire marine food chain from the bottom up.
So the takeaway here is huge. Viruses are active planetary engineers. They run the nutrient cycles, they influence global climate, they maintain the ecological balance, and by constantly knocking down the most successful species of bacteria, they stop any single one from just taking over the whole show. They're the great equalizers, creating space for incredible biodiversity. And all of this constant pressure, this endless cycle of attack and defend, infection and immunity, it creates this incredible dynamic across all of life. It's like a relentless, never-ending evolutionary race.
Biologists actually have a really cool name for this, and they borrowed it from Alice in Wonderland. They call it the Red Queen dynamic. Remember how the Red Queen says it takes all the running you can do to keep in the same place? That's it exactly. It's a perpetual arms race where both the virus and its host have to keep evolving, getting faster and smarter just to survive, just to stay in the game.
And this epic evolutionary battle, it leads to some absolutely breathtaking innovations. Let's talk about CRISPR. You've probably heard of it. Well, it's basically an ancient immune system for bacteria. Here's how it works. A virus attacks a bacterium. The bacterium survives, and it actually steals a tiny snippet of the virus's DNA. It then weaves that snippet into its own genome, like a most wanted poster. So the next time that same kind of virus shows up, the CRISPR system is like, I know you, and it just shreds it to pieces.
And now for the punchline. This ancient defense system, forged in a billion-year-long war between bacteria and viruses, is the exact same technology that we humans have now figured out how to use as a revolutionary gene editing tool. That's what CRISPR is, a tool born from ancient conflict that might just change medicine forever.
Okay, so let's put all these pieces together for a second. If viruses are moving genes around, if they're literally building parts of our bodies, engineering the planet, and driving massive innovation, then what are they? They're life's unseen architects.
And this leads us to a really radical idea that scientists are debating right now. Some theorists are actually proposing that the nucleus, the command center of our complex cells, might have started out as a giant ancient virus. Which just blows your mind, right? It totally reframes the question. Were viruses just invaders that came along later, or were they there at the very beginning acting as life's midwives?
And that brings us right back where we started, to the great paradox of a virus. On one hand, a destroyer. On the other, a creator. It can be a catalyst for extinction, but it's also the most powerful engine of evolution we know. A virus can wipe out huge populations, for sure, but in the genetic chaos left behind, new adaptations, new defenses, and even new forms of life can emerge from the ashes.
When it all comes down to it, the truth is this. You can't really understand evolution without understanding that without viruses, there would be no us. It's that simple. They are woven into the very fabric of life itself. Every single genome on this planet carries their echoes. We are their descendants just as much as we are their hosts.
And on a deeper level, they really force us to rethink, everything. They just completely blur the lines. They live in this strange gray zone between lifeless chemistry and living biology. They don't fit into our neat little boxes, and they challenge us to ask a really fundamental question. What does it even mean to be alive?
So, I'll leave you with this to chew on. If life's own architects are also its greatest destroyers, what does that tell us about the nature of life itself? Maybe it tells us that life isn't this calm, orderly thing. Maybe it's a process that's built on conflict, on chaos, and on incredible creativity, all happening at the very same time.